and then it just starts to formulate itself. And then I'll start to sing a bit like a gecko.
How does a gecko?
Can you sing like a gecko for us? Yeah.
Like just this kind of funky little vibe that the gecko was giving off. And it just took me down this totally new route that I've never been down.
Imogen Heap, it is so great to be sitting with you, and we must thank you from the bottom of our little green heart for the incredible music that you've already composed so far for this podcast. To be sitting here and listening to it and responding to it, it's been
a lot of fun.
I mean,
I've never written music in this way ever. So it's surprising to me too. My partner in crime is Dan O'Neill. So he's a zoologist and a filmmaker.
Runs around the world capturing all these
and
great
wildlife
sounds.
recordist.
He's amazing. He just disappears into all these beautiful corners of the world and is extremely knowledgeable. And how we're working is that he has this incredible library of sounds that he's recorded all over the world, and he's really good at categorizing them and kind of deciding what kind of feeling they might entice. Like a gecko might sound quite technological.
They were
technological gecko.
So he sends me these sounds, and then I listen to them. I kind of feel the tempo. There might be like an overarching kind of tone or mode. And then it just starts to formulate itself. And then I'll start to sing a bit like a gecko.
How does a gecko?
Can you sing like a gecko for us? Yeah.
Like just this kind of funky little vibe that the gecko was giving off. And it just took me down this totally new route that I've never been down. But I've been really enjoying it. And then another one was this beautiful melody of a whale, humpback whale.
Oh, wow.
So it starts off with this... and then really low.
Right.
And it's this beautiful melody. So that was then just, I
Perfect
traced
for
it with some
something,
strings and some vocals. And then it kind of felt like it needed this like swinging, lilting rhythm. And it just, it's so different to the way I normally write.
Because I don't know about you, but I feel as an actor that I need to engage with and respond to the world in which I live. And I mean, you were doing that directly with Dan in relation to the sounds. But I don't know where you sit with the notion of quote unquote climate change. It seems like it's a very political space. And how do you respond to that?
I guess in all kinds of different ways throughout my career, I've been drawn to people who really know what they're talking about. I'm not into being a poster girl, just say these things and put them on Twitter and therefore you're absolved of all of your responsibilities. I like to work with a group of people or really get to know a subject and then make some music out of it in the hope that that might translate to somebody else who might be on a path that way.
But where do you sit with language? When certain language can feel really, those words get really charged and can get often misinterpreted in ways that one doesn't, intend them.
Yeah, I mean, in songs, I'm not so descriptive, not so like this is how I want you to feel, this is my story. But I do thread in things that if you're attuned to it, then you know that I'm with you. So there are little flecks in there, but I don't like to, shout because I think that's very off-putting. But I want people to know that I'm, standing with them and I'm doing my bit in a way I can without switching people off because you can be too harsh.
When you feel you're speaking too directly to issues,
But I think it comes down to friends, doesn't it? Like who you know, what comes in as part of your life. So it's not like entirely separate thing that you feel is disengaging you from your current life.
Right.
So there's an artist that I know called Sam Lee, who's very engaged, and 90% of his time is about impact of the environment and how do we combat it and what do we do as artists. So he's with an organisation called Music Declares Emergency.
Okay.
So through him, really, I give my hand when I'm needed. If there's any musicians listening, you can go to that website and there's lots of great information about where to go, about how to help your tools be green.
Because we're looking for resources for people, and one of the questions was actually, how can artists engage more in the climate cause? And
well, there's been a very long-term organisation called Julie's Bicycle, who've been around for over a decade, and they are very, all across all creative sectors, how to help you be more green on tour, and there's carbon calculators and all kinds of suggestions and things like that. But it still isn't easy. You still have to kind of go out and really do your research, and for a lot of smaller bands, it's a lot of time for them. It's not so easy to be green. And even just something as simple as, no single-use plastics, bring your own bottle, makes a massive impact in a huge stadium.
Do you think the music industry is is actually able to respond?
Just looking at the Music Declares Emergency website, I can see there's a lot of change just recently in the last year. A lot of new initiatives that have come up.
Right.
So, things that weren't available when I was touring just 4 years ago. So it feels really positive. And the more people do it, obviously, the more people are aware, the more you can create the rolling ball effect.
So you're very technologically savvy. I mean, you're famous for your gloves as a tool for producing fantastic music, and you're really clearly open to new ideas and innovation. How do you, we're talking about this a lot in this program, about how, the adversity and necessity now is driving whole new technology sets to be developed and scaled quickly. How do you see the innovation process in music, and how do you engage so quickly with it? NFTs, that's like,
It's serious, that's hardcore.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I got excited about blockchain technology nearly 7 years ago. I just saw the solutions there in the underlying structure, not the kind of necessarily the crypto side, but
the ledger.
Yeah, the trust ledger, as a means to be able to create this layer that we need in the music industry of works and who has created the works, and then we can build on an industry that is more in our favour instead of losing 50% of our income, which disappears into other people's pockets, maybe my own. But it's also kind of messed up. So I got very excited about this technology, and I thought if I got involved and started developing with it as an artist, I could kind of create that forward space. But on that journey, have discovered that in parallel to that is this. The environmental movement is actually very aligned with blockchain. And so I'm excited about that. I've always been excited about how can we like fluidly, spontaneously redirect monies quickly. So say if I was like, I suddenly wanted to, I don't know, put some money into some ocean regeneration or something, so there might be somebody I've just met and I want to shout about it in my own kind of quiet way. So I could have a way to send a message to a song or all of my songs and say, I would like all of these works for this period of time, for a month, to be entirely funding this project. And then that information would be visible on a radio station or on Spotify or wherever. And then everyone would be aware of this initiative. I'd be giving money to it. They would be giving money to it by listening to it.
Right.
And people could curate playlists in all kinds of different ways. So it's that kind of future that I'm working towards, that I'm excited about.
Fantastic.
It's very interesting, because it's not necessarily that the work itself is about climate change. It's the way you consume it or distribute it or access it that actually can say, we don't have to do this in the old way that's necessarily polluting, or we can enjoy ourselves while doing something positive. So the kind of the shift happens in a way, what you're describing is sort of in parallel with the work. And the music, which is wonderful.
What Dan has really masterminded is this, from this huge library and his amazing kind of brain, to be able to conjure that into these really lovely like sonic packages that he gives me of sound, that I can then go, oh, brilliant, here's my little set of tools that I've got, and off I go, and it takes me into a space. So his reasoning for why they're packaged up in that way, and his kind of experience out there in nature, in the far corners of the earth, he can bring those stories to the podcast, and I can bring the stories of why that inspired this certain piece of music, which is the underlayer to your interviews, which is great. It's this kind of like another life, another kind of parallel story going on underneath, which kind of hopefully gives it even more weight and depth.
Absolutely.
Subconsciously.
Well, we're so excited to have you. Thank you again, Imogen.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank
Lovely
you so
to meet.
much. Yeah.